You're listening to Big World Network.
Pathological Passion, written by Jared and Lisa Kwan, read by Wendy Herman. Episode 3. Eric popped his neck as he stood at a large conference table with papers spread out over the top. Ever since he'd been hired on as an intern, his least favorite job was to organize and update the legal logs for the company. With over 300 new cases to file, he had spent the bulk of the day in the Northeast conference room on the 5th floor, ironically nicknamed Boondoggle, as most projects and meetings that took place in that particular room seemed to be a complete waste of time, despite all the hard work that was applied. "Eric, how are you doing in here?" Devin asked. "This task is sucking my will to live," Eric said as he sat down in a chair. "How much do you have left?" his friend wondered aloud as he looked over the project. "Way too much," Eric replied, running his hands over his eyes. "Are you out of here?" "Yeah, some of the other interns want to go hit the club," Devin replied. "But I can stay if you need help." "I appreciate it, but I can finish this up. I'll text you when I escape," Eric said with a deep sigh. "Plus, I think Kathy has her eye on you." "Right," Devin said sarcastically. "I think you've been trapped in this conference room too long. Listen, do me a favor. Don't party too hard. I heard a rumor that they're going to be starting exit interviews for interns soon, to see who they're going to keep on." "You do me a favor," Devin replied. "Quit getting killed by this mysterious chica and find an actual woman." "Will do," Eric said. Devin made it a point to dance his way out of the conference room. Eric continued sorting and filing. After about an hour, he found himself standing triumphant over the empty table. Then, just as he opened the conference room, an assistant carrying a large file box walked in. "I hate to do this to you, but another set of cases just came in, and legal needs them in place by 6 tomorrow morning," the assistant said. Eric sighed and looked up at the clock. 9:15 p.m. "No worries. I'll knock this out before I head home." "Good luck," the assistant said as she left. Eric let his shoulders slump as he picked up the box and set it on the table. He removed the lid and began to organize and file the new set of documents. One group of files caught his eye in particular. Possible litigation scenarios for current projects. He took just a second to flip through it and filed it away. After hours of organizing paperwork, Eric was finally near the end when he thought he heard someone giggling. He paused and looked around suspiciously. Confident that no one was there, he returned to filing. Then he heard laughing again, turned around, and found himself standing outside of a bookstore, unaware that he had fallen asleep. A dampness in the air and a cold breeze persuaded him to enter the shop. He let his confusion melt away as he sensed that he was supposed to be there. The 25 people there were more boisterous than would have been expected for a quiet little bookshop. Eric rubbed his head. He knew he was supposed to be doing something, but couldn't seem to think of it. Then he saw her, the woman who had killed him half a dozen times before in previous dreams. Instead of running, however, he found himself drawn to her. "Excuse me, do you recognize me?" Eric asked with genuine curiosity. Instead of a reply, the woman wrapped her arms around him and pulled him close. "I am so sorry. I need to apologize for our previous encounters," she said. Eric started to reply, but was startled by the affectionate move. "Yes, well, as long as things don't end the way they have previously, then we should be good." "No worries on that," she replied, stifling a laugh as she pulled away. "So before we wake up, what kind of books do you like to read?" Eric asked. "Oh, Tolkien, Pratchett, Card, the list goes on," she said, tucking her hair behind her right ear. "And how about yourself?" He tried to think of the most complicated authors. "Oh, you know, Tolstoy, Faulkner, Chaucer. You're not buying any of this, are you?" "Not a word," she said with a loud laugh. "You caught me," he replied. "I will tell you, but you have to promise not to make fun of me." She made a gesture of crossing her heart. I swear I will not make fun of you. Okay then. Eric paused for a moment. Tolkien, Pratchett, Card, and the likes? Oh, whatever, she said with a playful push. No, seriously. And hey, you promised not to make fun of me, he said with a chuckle. It was at that moment that he noticed they were closer than he had remembered, and their hands brushed up against each other. Both pulled back for a second before catching glances at one another and smiling. Eric paused as he looked around the room and simply held up his finger, suggesting that she wait a moment. Something began to nag at him at the back of his mind. Something wasn't quite right, but he couldn't seem to figure it out. Then a confused look crossed his face as he found that he had the urge to seek out and find charcoal and drawing paper. What is it? She asked. I can't explain it, but I need to find some art supplies, Eric said. Then he frantically began to search the store for the charcoal and paper. He found himself pushing past people to look in the corners and nooks of the shop. Then Eric reached down and picked up a piece of black chalk. A sense of elation came over him as he held it up. She watched his search from a distance, but just as she smiled at his discovery, her eyes darted to a man entering the store with a gun drawn. Everyone down! She shouted as she rushed forward and slammed all of her weight into a tall bookshelf. The large shelf fell forward, trapping the armed assailant. Eric almost didn't notice the domino effect happening until several of the bookshelves toppled to trap him as well. Help! He weakly shouted from under the heavy weight atop him. The woman ran over to him. I'm here. I didn't mean to do it again, she said frantically. What's your name? He asked faintly. Elise, what's yours? She asked as she looked for a way to free him. Eric, he said. Eric, her voice repeated, as everything began to go white. Eric. Then his eyes popped open and he found his head resting on the table and a book resting on his head. Eric stood up slowly with a painful headache, causing his ears to ring a little. Rough night, son? An old man asked as he entered the conference room. What? Oh, yeah, right. Night. Son, I have to say I am impressed, the old man said. It took you one night to do what it took a team of people to do in 2. I thought I would just put in some extra hours to get this done, Eric said. Remarkable, the old man said. Simply remarkable. Well, I'm not sure it was that great, he replied. Trust me, the right people are going to hear about this, the old man said as he exited the room. Eric sat back down in one of the large chairs as he looked up at the ceiling. One word escaped his lips without thought. Elise. The slight hum and vibration startled him for a second, until his instincts caused him to tap his watch. What's up? Where are you? Eric asked as his roommate's name flashed across the watchband. Not good. There are about a dozen of us down with food poisoning, Devon said in a weary tone. Eric sighed, then responded with deep suspicion. Food poisoning or hung over? Possibly both, Devon replied. You want me to tell the bosses that you'll be MIA? Eric asked as he stood up and activated the table. The surface quickly began to display his email and other relative information. It would mean the world to us. I don't think they would buy it if it came from us directly, Devon said with a little chuckle. No worries. Just send over the list of names and I will get it to the right people, Eric said as he looked over his calendar. Moments later, the requested list came across the screen. Got it? Devon asked. Yep, I'll catch you later at home. Ciao. Eric scrolled through the list, looking for the Common Core supervisor for the group. Tim Johnson, he whispered to himself. In one motion, he waved his hand and shut everything down on the table.
You're listening to Big World Network.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.